Hello, everybody, and I'm glad to be here with you. This is the Wednesday Roundtable with the Liberty First Foundation and myself, Michael Voss, the old man of New York politics, the political dragon here in the Bronx, New York. Now, as you may notice, we're missing a couple of people. Don't worry, several of the Liberty First members and the rest of my panelists, guests, actually, they host the show. I'm the guest. Will be with me in just a moment. They're just slightly delayed. So they gave me the privilege of having the opportunity to speak to everybody without them around for a few minutes. And I hope I'm going to do them justice. I'm going to try. So I thank everybody for checking in with us every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Matter of fact, here's Dal is with us right now. Oh my God, Dal, he cut his hair.
One second.
And Dal, you know what? Dal cut his hair and he lost his hearing. It's amazing. And I don't know how that's connected. The whiskers connected to the ears. I don't know, but somehow it knocked out his voice. He's going to fix his mic in a moment. But as I was saying, I want to thank and welcome everybody to being with us on the Wednesday Roundtable. By the way, Dal, just scream when you think you got your audio up. Because we appreciate that you join us. I know it's the middle of the week, and you take some time out to spend it with us to find out what's going on in our government. Is this constitutional? Is this what we really wanted? And should we want this? And what can we do about it? And so we're going to be talking a little bit about that. Now, obviously, I have my friend Dal is here with us. Frank Johnson will be joining us shortly. I think Mike Marshall is going to be a little bit late because, hey, everybody works. We have. There you go. I got
that. I had to turn it up a little bit. There we go.
Well, gee, that usually works when you turn up the volume.
Just a tad.
But, you know, everybody works. So we are just like you. I wish we could say that we are billionaires or millionaires or in the top 5%. No, we're working stiffs just like you are. And that's why it's so important, because just like you, we all live with the consequences of what these politicians are doing and how it's affecting our lives. We're right there with you. So I know exactly how you feel. Dal, before we do anything else, I gotta ask the question.
Yeah.
What happened? You got a promotion?
No. What?
No, now you knocked out your voice. I don't know what you just did.
Okay.
There you are. You're back
now. Yes, I got a promotion at work, but that's not why I shaved. So I have a deal where if it's above 45 degrees all week long and it looks like spring's around the corner, I shave like once a year. So you caught me at the once a year. So this is me kind of, trimmed up and everything, and I'll keep the haircut for most of the summer, but the beard will be growing back in for the rest of the year. So that's why this occurs, and it makes the wife happy, and that's important. So.
Well, that's the ultimate answer: is if the wife is happy, then that's why you're doing it. That's the easy answer: is wife said so. Okay.
Yeah, wife's happy. So yeah,
I get that.
As you say, it's we're here every Wednesday evening talking about the originalist Constitution and how we are not close to what we used to be as far as the founders' creation. And one of the things I hope to get to tonight is we're going to revisit Dexter Taylor's case, and we're going to revisit some of the newer cases out of the state of, I believe, Oregon or Washington, where there is a popular trend among the courts of these states where they are saying that the U.S. Constitution does not apply in their courtroom. And we want to visit that topic and actually argue that it's the judiciary right now that has gone rogue and away from the Constitution. So,
well, before we get to that, by the way, Frank, yes, we do see you and we can hear you. And that's, again, another member, actually one of the founders of the Liberty First Foundation, Johnson.
I'm standing out here in the great outdoors, and I can't really hear either one of you very well.
And we can hear you fine.
Yep. All right.
Good. 5x5.
Oh, you can hear me fine, but I have a highway about 80 feet in front of me that's preventing me from hearing you. So I'm doing the best I can. How's everybody doing tonight?
Pretty good.
I am I to be mistaken, or does Dow look slightly different this
we
evening?
actually just talked about that.
Less like Sasquatch and more like human.
All right, looking good. Hey, listen, unfortunately, due to my work schedule, they're getting all screwed up. I'm not going to be able to be on for very long. I'm stuck here in this building until 9:30 tonight, and then I got a half-hour drive back to my house. So by the time I get home, you guys will probably be done. But before I go, I just wanted to bring up a couple of things. Hopefully, you guys can touch on it in my absence, and I'll catch it on the rerun. Number one, 18 days. That's all it took, was 18 days for President Trump to ask Elon Musk, hey, can you go up and rescue our astronauts up there? And 18 days later, they were home.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That is absolutely freaking incredible, considering that it takes NASA 2.5 years to change a friggin' light bulb on Earth. They did it in 18 days. Listen, I don't care what side of the political spectrum you fall on, but if you've got a guy who just has what you're going to say is a car company and a communications company, and he can launch within 18 days an effort to bring 2 people home who've been stuck in space for a year. A year they've been stuck in space, to be able to build a rocket, let's face it, a rescue boat, a lifeboat from Earth to the International Space Station, get these kids home, to get these astronauts home, is absolutely astounding. And the fact that that is not the lead story on every news channel, on every cover of every newspaper, is amazing to me. Especially when you consider, when you go back of maybe 10 years ago, and we had a bunch of miners stuck underground, and it took like a month to go underground and get these guys. Now, that was a Herculean effort of amazing proportion, but they made a movie about that 3 months later. Mm-hmm. And the Earth, all of Earth celebrated that accomplishment for months and months and months. And here we have what is the equivalent of a moon landing. When you consider how much time and effort the moon landing took, and this guy did this with his team in 18 days. 18 days. That's the most technologically amazing achievement Earth has ever seen. And the fact that it's being brushed off, and you still have people that are out there trying to condemn this man, is absolutely nuts to me. Second thing I want to touch on, if you guys can talk about it a little bit, why the hell is Pam Bondi late again? You know, first it's the Epstein list, and now it's her report card on the Second Amendment infringements. Why is Pam Bondi seem to be behind the curve on every goddamn thing she does? I don't know why. Is she purposely becoming Jeff Sessions 2.0? Or is she just incompetent? Mm-hmm. I don't know.
I mean, we'll definitely discuss it because it ties in.
But if you could touch on that.
Go ahead, Frank. Go ahead. No, let him finish up.
Yeah, go ahead, Frank.
Yeah, I don't know if that was something on your radar. It was on mine, but unfortunately, you're there, I'm here, and neither of us are in the same place.
True enough. Were you thinking about anything else?
Well, I had a whole list of stuff, but there was some stuff I didn't have prepared enough for tonight's show. There's a group that I'm trying to get in touch with up in Ohio. Mm-hmm. That if you remember, there was a bridge in somewhere near Cleveland where they had a bunch of alleged neo-Nazis terrorizing this neighborhood? Well, it seems that there's been a group that's come in, and it's majority African Americans who've taken to the streets in armed tactical gear to patrol and protect this neighborhood, because the police department doesn't seem to want to address the neo-Nazis or even identify them. So there's a group that's out there doing it right now, and unfortunately, because it doesn't look conventional, nobody's bothering to ask the question as to whether or not this is a legitimate group. Is it a hate group? Is this the Black Panthers? Is this some separatist organization? Is it a terrorist group? Nobody's bothered to just ask, hey guys, why are you doing this? Well, we are going to ask them why they're doing this and get some answers, because the media doesn't want to. All we know that these are American people that are utilizing the Second Amendment to the best of their ability to protect a community that is not being protected by anyone else. And if we can, share their story with the public, let them find out exactly what's going on, let the public decide whether they need to be have condemnation or fundraising. One way or the other, we'll figure it out. But until then, I'll catch you guys next week. If I get home early, I'll shoot a message to you guys. I'll hopefully join in.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right, guys. Have a good night. I'll talk to you later.
Okay.
Later, Frank. Safe trip
Bye.
home.
So, folks, now we got a couple of things. So there's, yes, as Frank was mentioning, and why is that? There he goes. As Frank had been mentioning, there is, of course, the news today. The astronauts in the International Space Station, ISS, if you see it in the news, that's what that means, International Space Station. They were supposed to be up for about a week, and they wound up being up in the space station for 9 months. Boeing had originally created the spacecraft that was supposed to bring them back home. That failed, as I understand. And so NASA had 9 months to put together some kind of rescue plan to get a NASA-based vehicle up to the space station to get these 2 astronauts and to bring them back home. And thank God the International Space Station has more than enough supplies, although I'm sure they stretched it quite a bit, kind of like the movie The Martian. They made sure that they would be able to have more than enough food and water supplies to be able to last longer than that 1 week or 9 months.
Yeah.
We've at least learned one thing that we've seen now in the movies that said we should have more supplies than we'll ever need because stuff happens. And so, but it is correct. After President Trump came in, Elon Musk is working with him. Elon Musk does have his own independent space industry, and he put a rocket up, had a couple of astronauts of his own, and independently private business sent them up, connected, got them, and landed today. You would think that would be big news, but that would mean that Elon Musk isn't the devil himself, and there might be some praise for the Trump administration as well, since they did what NASA and 9 months couldn't do, and for less money than the government has spent over the last 9 months on this. And so news media said, no, we're not talking about it.
Oh, but
that's pretty sad.
The news media was more than happy to sit there and talk about Elon Musk's failures when he was trying to get rockets ready to go up to the space station to rescue the astronauts with the 2 explosions of the other rockets. And, they were more than happy to cover that. But the moment he's successful, it's downplayed. Like, oh yeah. So he got up there, big deal. He got 2 people home. It wasn't like they were in any danger or anything, is the spin that we're getting from the media. And that's not correct. When Boeing had their craft up there, at first, Boeing's like, no, it's just a minor technical glitch, and we'll be able to fix it. They'll be able to come home. And then 9 months later, the astronauts are still up there. And it wasn't a minor technical glitch. I can remember reading the reports that there were strange noises coming from the craft, that something didn't seem quite right. And as far as I know, it's the Boeing's craft is still attached to the space station because they have nothing. They have no way to fix it from there. So I don't know what they're going to do, what Boeing is going to do with their craft, but obviously Elon Musk was the way to get them up there and back again with any sort of reliability. Even though both rockets did, the previous rockets did meet the end of their life. And basically those two failures, I think, show that there is an expiration date, at least so far, to the lengths at which the technology can be recovered. I think what ended up happening is they were sent up and back so many times, they finally were at the point where they needed more of a check over to actually be successful in launching away from the planet, and there wasn't enough to
we got lucky that it wasn't another Challenger and there was a
Yeah.
catastrophic failure, but it's the same basis. We weren't keeping up. The government inefficiency was tantamount, was so enormous that the proper checks weren't made. Maintenance wasn't up to date. They didn't identify that this vehicle had been used too much. We
Right.
needed a new one, which means, yes, spend the money if we're going to do this. And they weren't willing to come to the American people and say, hey, we need God knows how many tens of millions, hundreds of millions to make a new vehicle to keep doing this. The politicians didn't think they could get it justified with the American people. They didn't want to face the embarrassment of not being able to keep up with the promises they've made about NASA. And so instead, they nearly killed two of our astronauts and possibly could have damaged the International Space Station. I think it's, and then covered it up by not talking, like many of the things we may be speaking about, they covered it up after the fact because they don't want people to realize, oh, people are businessmen, individuals in the Trump administration right now, America right now, have been successful on multiple things without the immense bureaucracy that we have been conditioned to accept. And it's been beneficial to America. They don't want that message out there. They don't want to talk to people about it.
Right.
But I am glad they are home. And that's ultimately one of the biggest things. But yes, there's the other politics in it as well.
Yeah.
Before I know there's a couple of things you mentioned, Dexter Taylor, which is a very big Second Amendment issue. He's, for people who don't remember, Dexter Taylor is he was learning to be a gunsmith in his free time. He's a father, owned a home, and he legally bought the supplies, was training himself, had a bunch of firearms that he created that no one ever knew about, that were secure, that were never fired, not once. And New York State decided, well, you can't do that. You can't have a hobby. You can't build something in your own home with your own money that you purchased with your own money and in the privacy of your own home. You can't do that. They broke into his house. They arrested him and they convicted him because he committed no crime. Quite honestly, he had unregistered firearms. How would you know? They broke in looking for them because they didn't know what he was doing, because they didn't trust him. And that is a complete failure of government. And I know we want to talk about what's been happening to Dexter because he's been convicted and sentenced to 10 years, which is absurd. And I know he is trying to appeal that, willing to go to the Supreme Court if it's possible. But before we get to that, I do want to mention something else that's in the Second Amendment that I think is also very important. And maybe they dovetail together. And that is, did you hear about today, this morning at about 10 a.m., most people started hearing about it at about 11:30 this morning, that there was a gunman who is at the CIA offices in Langley, Virginia, and that the CIA offices were shut down. Did you hear about that?
No, I didn't hear about that. I was at work all day, so I didn't really get any updates.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't hear about this, and that's kind of scary. I actually was speaking to my family, some of my members of my family, and they didn't hear about this story. It wasn't on any of their news sources that they were looking for. There was just about no way for them to find out this news. And this should pop up. Come on, there we go. There it is. You'll see here. This is from the Guardian. The Daily Mail. Excuse me. And this was from earlier today. And you can see that this news was published at 12:42 this afternoon. And most people have never seen this. That there was a gunman. This is the end of the event. It had been going on for about 2.5 hours when this got reported by the Daily Mail, that the individual had been arrested and he was alive. And this is an idea of how many police officers, law enforcement from all around Langley, the whole region, were sent in, including SWAT teams. This is what the gentleman looks like, and I'm presuming it's a gentleman, but I doubt that that is the case, but I'll get into that in a second. So this nut job decided to go to the CIA building, pulled out a firearm, apparently, which was initially reported by some news sources as being a shotgun. There were initial reports that he fired in the air. It seems that is not correct. And then was in a confrontation, obviously, with the CIA officers, the security there, eventually handing over his firearm and being arrested. This took about 2.5 hours. Bomb squads were sent in. Rumors were going around the internet. I did a very short video talking about this, saying, no, there is no bomb. There was no evidence, no credible evidence that there was a bomb involved. It was not connected, or it seems not to be connected to the JFK files that were to be released today by last night by Trump's administration. That isn't what seems to be the case. What we don't know exactly what is the reasoning at this moment. It seems to be this guy is, you can see the image yourself. I would not say that he's not the image of conservatism or Republican that I'm used to seeing, or that most people are used to seeing. I think most people would pretty much identify him as some kind of left wing. And if in fact he considers himself a he or an it or whatever. And this is the individual. So I find it interesting because you would think, and I know on TikTok, about 1,000 people were reacting to the video because they hadn't heard about this. When I did the video, it was I did my short about 11 o'clock this morning, and it was the first time most people were hearing about it. YouTube showed it to no one for 3 hours. They just hid it. They hid the information from the public. It was very much downplayed by all the mainstream news media. In fact, I can show you, and I'll show you what I mean by that, and then we can talk about it in a second. And there we go. So right now, this is a Google search of the news. This is already the news. Now I'm going to refresh this right now in front of everyone so you can see. I put in CIA lockdown because the CIA building got locked down. This should be part of any news report out there. Mint, KFOR News, AOL, which is actually an article from USA Today. The Mirror from overseas, the Mirror, the international office of that newspaper, the Daily Express, the Daily Mail, the Mirror, Daily Star, WJLA, and MSN. You know what I didn't see on that list?
What's
ABC News, NBC, Reuters. And I know Reuters online on YouTube had a live stream of the lockdown. They were filming it. That's how I found out about it. that they had cameras up and they were just filming at the barricade that had been put up by security at CIA, and they have no article up. The mainstream news media didn't tell the American people about this. That's insane, I think. So now that you're hearing about this for the first time, do you have any questions?
Well, for one thing, I would like to know how the guy got so close to one of our largest in the information gathering groups, the intelligence agencies that we have in the country, when they seem to be on top of everything else. And the other thing I would be interested to know is, what exactly is this guy's motivation for moving against the CIA?
Okay, so to answer your second question first, we have no idea, because there's no public announcement yet. We haven't heard about the investigation. We know nothing about this individual. And since the mainstream media is trying to sweep it under the rug, probably because if this individual matches the appearance that they have, this is a left-wing nut.
Yeah.
And I would not be surprised if he said, well, it's because of Elon Musk, or because, all the news media have told me that Trump is a dictator. If he may be reacting to that fear mongering that we've been hearing for the last 55 some odd days. And so because he may be a member of the left, that doesn't go along with their messaging, especially on the Second Amendment or law enforcement, doesn't go with any of their messaging. So they don't want to talk about it. They already have enough problems with Schumer and the public polling that says the American people, roughly 60-70%, are approving of the actions by Donald Trump. They don't want to have to add to the fuel of success and positivity for the Trump administration. They want Orange Man bad. That's all they want. It's like you were saying with Elon Musk. Don't talk about the success he had. They don't want to talk about that. Failure all day long. Success, don't want to talk about it. To answer your first question, what's his motivation? He wants to be insta famous, apparently. He might have been contemplating suicide by police officer, which a lot of these nut jobs do. That's why they attack the White House, because they want to have suicide. They want to kill themselves because they're not bold enough to do that. So they instead antagonize and attack law enforcement, hoping that law enforcement will take them out. And then there are the absolute nut jobs that actually do it because they're just evil. I don't know which one this guy falls into, but yeah.
Well, if you bring up the picture again, you can actually see he's wearing colors.
Well, I wouldn't say it's colors. He's wearing khaki, and I'm going to bring it up again in just a second. Come on, the system catches up. There it is. So, and this is like the only image I could find. Yeah. I had to go outside the United States to get this image. It's a Getty image, but MSNBC, ABC, CBS, they're not using it. So the American people don't get to see this guy. So they're obviously very afraid of people seeing this. But you can see he's wearing baggy pants with a few colors on there, pink and blue in particular. And he has a roughly desert camo shirt, just a t-shirt.
I think you're going to no, but I think you're going to find that when they go to look into his past history, the colors he's exhibiting on the bottom of his pants there, the pink and the blue, are actually the colors of the trans community. And so my guess is, and this is purely speculation, I'm not making any alleging or anything like that, but my speculation is that we're going to find out that this man is somehow tied to the trans community, and he probably has been radicalized by the idea of trans genocide from this administration. The irony is that he's moving against the intelligence agency that currently is at the middle of a firestorm, so to speak, and a pool of suspicion of having worked against the people of this country, and they're not exactly America first, right?
Well,
That's the irony, is that this particular group of people generally have supported the CIA, because the CIA has been trying to proliferate their movement abroad in other countries.
well, I think though, with the news yesterday, also very few people heard about this. I covered this as well yesterday. VA Secretary, the Veterans Affairs Secretary, Doug Collins,
Yeah.
announced yesterday that the VA will no longer pay for trans surgeries, sex change operations, will no longer be paid for by the American taxpayer through the VA. It's just not going to happen. Not all the veterans will continue to have their benefits that they would have because they are veterans. That hasn't changed, but we're not going to pay for it anymore. So this individual, if those colors are an indication of their political alignment, and that means they are supporters or trans or whatever they may be, if that's the case, then they were reaching out, possibly may have been reaching out to punish the government for taking that away from trans individuals, which is, I think, a silly thing. And I think most people in America agree. If you want to have elective surgery, fantastic. Go have you're a grown adult, have your elective surgery. I don't have to pay for it. The American government doesn't have to pay for it. Now, you're a veteran. That means we will pay for your general well-being, your healthcare, especially in anything that's related to your service. Absolutely, 1,000%. Changing your sex isn't related to being in an active war zone or in anywhere as a veteran, being stationed anywhere in the world. That has nothing to do with sex change. That is useless. So I think most would agree. Now, one of the things I took from this that I think is kind of important, and I asked this, we hear from the left all the time, red flag laws will save you. The restrictions on the Second Amendment will save you. Gun bans will save you. We keep hearing all these things. We've heard them for 50 years, half a century, that they have been saying consistently. If we just get rid of the guns, you'll be safe. If we restrict the guns, if we punish you for owning a gun, you will be safe. Here's what seems to be a leftist. This is a nut job who went to the CIA. Now, the CIA, in Langley, one of the largest law enforcement agencies in the world, surrounded by God knows how much military and police and law enforcement, as we can see from the lockdown alone and the number of responders I usually saw in the photos I showed. This guy got right up to their door and presented a firearm. I don't know if it's legal or illegal. Don't know that yet. Again, they won't tell us, which makes me think it's illegal. But he got there, presented this firearm. What about all those laws? What about all those protections? If the CIA isn't safe with red flag laws, with restrictions on who can own a firearm, what kind of firearm they can have, with all of the dozens upon dozens of, in fact, 22,000 firearm restrictive laws, the anti-Second Amendment laws we see out there in a generally democratic state, Virginia, if the CIA isn't safe, and these gun laws have failed spectacularly, how are you safe in your home? How is anyone safe? LA, Chicago, Baltimore, New York, Boston. Those are the big cities. How about little cities like Greene, New York, Binghamton, New York, Cornell, Fairfax, Virginia, Sioux City, Iowa? How are you safe anywhere in this country? If the big cities aren't safe, and the data says none of those laws have worked, if law enforcement headquarters aren't safe, how are you being protected by these? Why are we doing these gun control laws? Doesn't make sense. And I guarantee you, David Hogg is going to make a comment about this, if he hasn't already, saying, "Oh, we got to get rid of the guns." It's the CIA.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No,
Does
and
that make sense?
it's been a total failure. These extraneous gun laws, and honestly, the best thing that can happen is if we return to the Constitution and we repeal things like the NFA, and we we abolish the ATF, and we actually get back to trusting the American people with their right for self-defense and the free exercise that's guaranteed in the Constitution. We're seeing it now that the suppressed information of communities that arm themselves are safer communities. It's slowly getting back out into the public consciousness. I've seen a couple of reports released lately, especially from certain Supreme Court cases that have been won in states where even in what was the latest one? There was one in, I don't want to misspeak, but there's lately been some wins in the judiciary from FPC cases that their judgments have said that a lot of these red flag laws are unconstitutional, at least if not in part, then at most, then in their entirety. Just the other day, was it? It was Florida Governor DeSantis that actually was talking about revisiting red flag laws, realizing that in his era at the time, I seem to remember him supporting red flag laws, but now he's asking to revisit the question and actually repeal them in Florida.
Well, you're talking about Trump. I know when Trump first made that push before he backed off on red flag laws, Marco Rubio, as a senator, actually had a bill out for red flag laws.
Yeah.
He also has backtracked on that. I think the reason why they backtracked is individuals like myself and others presented them with the evidence that red flag laws don't work. They don't work in the major cities.
Right.
They don't work in the bluer states. They don't work anywhere, not to protect people from suicide, nor to protect people from gang violence or gun violence in general. It's useless. And I think that's why they've pulled back from that.
Yeah. I mean, and there's a lot of things that come from that. Let's see here. There's something from the Tampa Bay Times. Let me look at it real quick. Yeah, so right after the Parkland shooting, the
Parkland shooting, or do you mean the Parkland shooting report, which states that every school should have armed what are the SROs?
Yeah,
security personnel, police,
resource officers.
That's it. Resource officers, and that there should be armed resource officers in every single school. And in fact, depending on the size of the school, there probably should be more than one armed resource officer in each school, depending on its size. So that's the actual report. David Hogg doesn't like to talk about that. And the Democrats, the DNC, they don't like to talk about what the actual report was that said, no, we need this to protect kids.
Yeah. Now this is from the Tampa Bay Times. I have this up now, and there was a tweet from him, an X post from Ron DeSantis, March 4th, 2025, and he's calling for open carry and red flag law revisions. And he says, open carry, we see other states that have laws that respect that. I'm for it. I've always been for it. If you talk to most gun owners, but he, in spite of us saying we're a free state, we've definitely lagged on that issue. And he's alluding to the red flag laws.
They're horrible. They're horrible. Yep. But I think it's important that we should be identifying over and over and over again. We're seeing these instances that are showing us the promises that we were given about if you just give up some of your rights, if you just give up on the Second Amendment, you will be safe. This is the lie that has been told to progressives and everyone else, Democrats and liberals. They've been saying this to the American people over and over again for years, for decades. It's never been true. And
Right.
this is obviously the CIA going into lockdown is just one more example, but it is an example of what we see in this trend that no, they are absolutely not protecting you.
Yeah.
And why are we even considering this if it doesn't work?
Yeah. If the
And
government can't,
again, this is suppressed.
yeah,
Go ahead.
I see your point, because it's like if the government can't keep guns out of the hands of criminals that move against their own bureaucracies and their own departments, how can they do that for the individual?
Yeah,
They're not going to be there.
They didn't identify this individual with a red flag law, and obviously, the reporting says what did go out from the police is that there was an individual having a mental crisis. No kidding. He walked up to the gate of the CIA with a firearm and pulled it on them. Of course, it's called he's having a mental crisis. He's a nut job. Absolutely, it's a mental crisis. But now you haven't answered anything. So, are these damaged individuals, many people who are committing a lot of the violence, they're gangs, they're criminal. There are criminals, many of them on drugs, or they're gang members, or they're mentally unstable.
Yeah.
Those are three of the primary groups that commit gun violence. And they're saying, oh, the guy at the CIA, well, he's mentally imbalanced. Then shouldn't we be, instead of trying to push red flag laws or the New York Safe Act or gun bans, shouldn't we be looking to fund mental health in America? Shouldn't that be the way to make people more safe? That's one of the three primary target groups of committing these crimes. Shouldn't we be spending our money there?
Which we can do, but I don't think the government should be the arbiter of that. I think that really what it should come down to is that the communities actually should be retaining the funds to be able to put that towards mental health. Because if you ask the government to try and do that for us and use public monies to fund it, what's going to wind up happening is they're going to create a measurable system that they're going to get to be the arbiter of, and then they're going to be able to abuse that system to apply it to whoever they think is dangerous. It's much safer as far as individual rights are concerned to be actually leave that in the hands of communities, and the only way you're going to get to do that is to keep public money with the public and have communities do it, not the government.
Well, I'm all for anyone. Obviously, the government isn't effective and efficient with gun control. It's
Correct.
one of the least effective, least efficient ways to protect people because it doesn't protect people. Not in any state, not even if you're law enforcement of the United States government. It doesn't protect you. It isn't saving anyone. If this nut job just pulled the trigger, we may have been talking about a news story of people being dead.
Yeah.
Part of the reason why it didn't go any bigger, why it was a regional story, not a national story, is because he never pulled the trigger. Thank goodness. I'm happy for that.
Yeah.
But that doesn't change. We should be having this conversation, and we should stop wasting our time and our money on the social experiment saying, let's punish law-abiding legal gun owners who 99.994%, that is an exact mathematical number. That's not me pulling it out of air.
Right.
That's how many law-abiding gun owners are in America at this moment. Why are we wasting our time and money punishing them when that's not effective? That's not part of helping anyone.
And that's also the exact wrong demographic to be focusing on. It's not even one of the three ones that you mentioned.
Yeah.
So how is it effective when it's really leveled at the only people that responsibly use their, exercise their right? Now, a user actually points out that maybe he was part of a Ziz cult. User, if you think that, I would actually take the story that you see here, like look it up, grab it, and send it to Andy No. Andy No has been doing a lot of groundwork and research on the Ziz cult, and if it's connected in any way, he'd be the guy to know.
Okay, I have no idea what a Ziz cult is, but
to make the long story short, it's a group of people that were identifying as trans individuals that were on a murder spree, multi-state murder spree in the West Coast area towards the middle of the country. And one of the members has faked death twice to evade law enforcement and has managed to pull it off both times. So I haven't been following the story that closely after Andy No's original reporting, but Andy No would know if this is going to be something that's tied to that movement.
Okay. So, folks, we're going to take before we move on. I know we went a little bit longer than I expected on this topic, but we also did ISIS. But I want to remind you, please like, share, and most of all, subscribe. There's a reason why these stories, you haven't heard about them. You didn't hear about the International Space Station. You probably didn't hear about the CIA under lockdown. No one in the mainstream media is talking about it because you're not supposed to think about it. You're not supposed to have an opinion about it. You're simply supposed to obey. You're not supposed to ask the question, as Jan did, that, if this individual is displaying his colors like a gang member, like if he were a member of the Crips or the Bloods, if they were wearing those colors to identify his group, and we are correct on the group he's trying to identify with, we should be having this conversation in America to help individuals in the trans community and everyone else as well, because there's a problem here. We saw it in Tennessee.
Yeah.
We're seeing it here. There's a problem. We need to address that. But we can't if the majority of people don't know. And that's why this channel, this program is so important for you to support, to go out there and put in that like, that share, that subscribe. It costs you nothing, but it makes the difference of being able to reach more people so we can have these conversations, so we can get solutions. All right. With that said, let me move on. So I wanted to talk about that, but I guess that's kind of a segue. I want to get to Trump and the judges, want to talk a little bit about the auto pen. We've been talking about Elon Musk back and forth, but I know you wanted to talk about Dexter Taylor. Something changed. What happened?
So nothing has really changed since Dexter Taylor's current case. There's been no movement on the appeal as far as I know. What I do know is that lately there was a gun control measure in Oregon called Oregon's 114 gun control measure, where they voted for limitations on magazine size, and they now have put in place an onerous permitting process required to get long guns or any firearm. And recently there was a judge that suspended it, gave an injunction because it was considered, he deemed it unconstitutional. There was a 3-panel of judges that just recently reversed that decision and said that the gun control measure is constitutional, as it does not outright ban firearms, but it puts into place a permitting system. Now that's actually a backward step as far as the fight for the 2A is concerned, because what that means is now you are licensing a right, and you no longer have, if you're licensing that right, that means that it can't be a right under the law. So this is just another indication that certain states are taking it upon themselves to arbitrate the Constitution once again and actually limit your ability to exercise your free exercise to your guaranteed rights in the Constitution.
Okay, so if I'm understanding it correctly, it's like New York State.
Yes.
Where we saw Kathy Hochul, she put out these essentially barricades. She put the hurdles in front of everyone saying, oh, you've got to spend $1,000. You got to spend the next 3 to 6 months trying to get a license to legally be able to own a firearm in New York.
Right.
And they did that so that you wouldn't either be able to afford it or be able to spend the time to be able to get that license. They wanted to make it almost impossible, especially if you happen to be poor, if you happen to be a woman, it would be almost impossible for you to have the time and money to be able to protect yourself.
Right.
But if you're rich, like the donors to the DNC, then yeah, you'd be able to get guns and security guards, just like what we see with AOC and well, all of the squad and most of the members of, Chuck Schumer, Kirsten Gillibrand, they all have armed guards. They all are able to carry a firearm, but regular people like you and me can't. So we're seeing that idea that started in New York to skirt around the Second Amendment, to basically give the middle finger to the Supreme Court that said, that's illegal. That's unconstitutional. You didn't stop people. You didn't break the Second Amendment. You're just putting a cement wall around it that no one can climb. And now that's spreading to other states. Is that right?
That's correct. And what this 114 will do, so they said because the people voted on it at the state, it matches with the state constitution and should be a legal law. Well, the thing of it is, I guess the biggest question is, we have a lot of these states that are demonstrating that the federal constitution and the Second Amendment specifically has no place in their state. But how can you be part of the United States if you don't recognize the Constitution in its entirety? That was actually covered under Bruin in the Supreme Court, and they said that these gun control laws are unconstitutional. They just are. And Oregon is one of those states where currently the leftist authoritarians are in charge. They're very much a one-party voting state, just like New York is. So if the people voted for this, that means that 30% of the people that are voters that turned out for elections voted for representatives that were all in favor of Oregon's 114. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's indicative of the people that are living there.
Well, wait a minute. I don't even think they didn't vote on this. They voted for representatives. That doesn't mean they voted for removing their constitutional rights.
Correct.
I don't think most people know that. And that's a problem. If Democrats were so confident that this was the solution, that this experiment that they keep trying over and over again with over 22,000 local, state, and federal laws, and we have seen it fail in every iteration. And if they were that confident that this is the actual answer to gun violence, gun crime, why don't they actually say, okay, well, here's a referendum for the state. Let the people of the state vote and say, do you want to give up your Second Amendment rights? It's just that simple. Don't put it to a politician who didn't tell the public, oh yeah, I'm going to take away your Second Amendment rights. I'm going to make it impossible for you to exercise your rights. And because they didn't say that, so now they did an end around. They went behind the backs of the public. The news media isn't publishing this story, so people aren't reading about it. They don't know that this is a debate happening in their legislature. They find out after it's been passed, and they suddenly go, hey, wait a minute, I never wanted that. I didn't vote for you to do that. You never said you were going to do that. That is deceptive. And I think the answer to my own question is the reason why the left, Democrats, progressives, aren't presenting that to the public and doing a referendum is they know they would lose in every single state, even in Oregon, even in New York State, California. They'd lose in every single state. The public does not want to give up its right to defend itself.
Right.
I mean, do you think I'm wrong?
No, I think that's absolutely right. And it's one of the reasons why more than ever, people need to understand that the real power, and this kind of segues into what's happening with Pam Bondi, like with what Frank talked about. We cannot, as the people, just let the governments handle it. That's what actually landed us in the Biden era of his administration. That's actually what gave us the Obama era of their legislation. And to some degree, even Trump's first term was something that we just let the government handle itself and thought that it was going to be fixed because the guy that was the populist was going to actually fix things for us without any of our own involvement. That's not going to happen. The part of this American First type of movement requires that the people apply the necessary pressure to their representatives with the basic ultimatum: if you don't do your job, you're fired. And the only way that that happens is if we show up en masse to percentages greater than 30 or 40% and actually vote for the policies that we want. And then when those representatives are in office, you need to inundate them with phone calls, with written mail, with emails, with physical presence. Even you go to the office, you make an appointment, you sit down with your congressman. You can do that. People don't realize that, yes, your congressman or your senator should make time for you to sit down and talk with you.
They're supposed to.
Go to the town hall.
I know they used to, but then again, I'm older.
Right.
My birthday's coming up in a month. I'm older. And I remember they used to come out to the public, not for a photo op, but because they were part of the community. Right. And I remember that they used to be involved with like having kids from the local schools come in, not for a photo op, but just to talk to them about the law. And their parents would come in, and individuals would go to see them in their offices. They would have office hours, not their staff, who are always there because they have to be. No, the actual representative would be in the office so that you could go and speak with them, and voice your grievances, or set up an appointment to be able to voice your grievance with that. And you don't see that anymore. No. AOC is never, I know for a fact, AOC is never in her district. I know people who are in that district. I can tell you that Richie Torres, who's another Democrat in New York 15th district, my member of Congress, he's never in this neighborhood. He has no one in this section of the Bronx has ever seen Richie Torres. They vote for him because he's Democrat. It's got a D after his name. That's the only reason why they vote for him. They wouldn't, if he was walking down the street, they have no idea who he is. He's never in this neighborhood. And I can tell you that within a 5-block radius, we've got probably about 20,000 people, because I'm in the city and there's apartment buildings. We got like 20,000 people here, and he never shows up. That's very upsetting. Yeah.
So I mean that kind of involvement takes a lot of effort. It does, but ultimately, your representatives will eventually hear you, and they don't want to lose their jobs. So, ergo, you show up. They're going to take more. They're going to put more weight to your considerations than if we just let the government handle it. That's the long and the short of it. The people have to be involved, and that comes to. Yeah, you're right, Jan. When you go to call them, their voicemail is full, and when you go to give them an email, you get basically a auto response. Thank you very much for your interest in this piece of legislation or whatever, and we will take a moment to look at your grievances.
Form letters.
Yeah, if they're form letters. But even then, like even the form letters that you get in response. Then you follow up with a phone call, or you follow up with a physical presence and be like, hey, you haven't really answered my calls. You haven't been listening to my grievances. I'm here now, and I'm recording. And if you turn me away and actually don't listen to your people, your constituents, you're not going to have a job, because we'll primary you out.
They don't believe that people will do it. And they don't believe that people will listen to someone who shows the disrespect and disinterest of a member of Congress versus the several millions of dollars they will get from special interest donors. That'll show an ad that says everyone loves this guy, and he's a guy or gal that they love them and they're doing such a great job, even though no one's ever seen them, even though no one's ever knows what they're presenting to Congress. And that's what they're counting on. We can have better ads bought by our donors than you can get attention. And that's why people need to speak up.
Right. En masse. Like, we need to be out there active in percentages greater than 1 or 2%, because otherwise you have no pull. Because we're the voters. and they think by running an ad to 100,000 voters that they're going to be better off than listening to 100 voices sitting on their doorstep. If you show up with 100 people, they're going to put some weight behind that because they know that there are 100 bodies standing in front of their office right now demanding that they talk to.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we cannot just sit back and be passive anymore in this.
And we don't need, but I want people to understand that doesn't mean go burn down your neighbor's Tesla. That doesn't mean go and key someone's their car, or break windows at their business, or harm someone.
No,
that's the big thing is nowadays the media has made it seem to conflate that if I'm upset with my government, I have to destroy something. I have to harm someone. I have to threaten someone. That's not the way that you get anything passed.
No,
that isn't the way that a civil society works. Yeah,
you don't condone a criminal action
all you want, but don't destroy anything. Don't harm anyone. Don't threaten anyone.
No, you don't perform a criminal action in order to draw attention to something like that. It's sometimes in marketing you get what's called negative. Any attention is good attention. So even if it's negative, right? But in this particular case, if you want to create something, you cannot create something by utilizing negative attention for it. Basically, all you're doing is setting yourself up for failure, because if you're going to destroy something, that it's destroyed. You cannot. You're basically a hypocrite by saying, "I'm going to destroy private property in order to get you to pay attention to me to create something new about private property, or any policy for that matter." It doesn't make any sense. So when we have things like the legislation that's going through, lawful means is the best means, because we don't want to break the law to make law. We want to have law upheld across the board consistently in line with the Constitution that founded this country. And that's why being educated on the Constitution, being educated about what are your rights, your unalienable rights, and what does it mean to be able to freely express them, is so important. And that's why channels like ours exist here at the Liberty First Foundation. Joanna actually has a good point too.
Yeah, I was about to address that. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the food and water are basic necessities that everybody needs. And yes, we should have the ability to choose how we produce our own food and water and medicines. And Thomas Massey has been actually putting legislation out there to guarantee the private right of individuals to create their food and water and not have it regulated by the government.
No, not only that, I would have to say Massey has been big about that. So has Rand Paul, famously, ever since 2020, but even before then. But I think it's also worth saying there is the whole MAHA movement, the Make America Healthy Again movement, which we've seen with RFK Jr., who is a Democrat, who was forced to go independent so that he could compete against the Democrats and Donald Trump as well. But the one thing that most people agreed with is, he's serious about making America healthy. His arguments that he's making and the examples that he's putting forward make sense.
Yep.
Why are we using all these chemicals when we can use beef tallow? Why are we using these chemicals to make a red dye when to be able to sell the same foods from the United States in other countries, we have to use natural flavorings, natural colorings.
Right.
But for American people, we use artificial chemicals. And we assume those chemicals will never have a negative impact on my life. You stuffed your body full of preservatives all your life. And we see now generations of kids, they don't cook for themselves. The average kid today, average college graduate, doesn't know how to cook for themselves. They know how to order Uber Eats. They know how to order food that has been pre-cooked. There's a dozen different services out there that will bring you pre-cooked meals that you just drop in a microwave and fresh and ready to eat. But that's not cooking.
No.
Someone else made that for you, but you can't. And I guarantee you, there's more chemicals in all these foods that are being delivered and preserved for you than if you cooked yourself.
Yeah.
And that's why we're seeing so much diabetes, why we're seeing so many people overweight. They're not exercising enough. It's because we've trained people badly. And we do need to get the government out of the way, because the government was like, yeah, that's a great idea. Keep on doing that. No,
on the other,
we should do it another way. Go ahead.
On the other side of that argument too, we also need to make sure that we're deregulating a lot of the natural ingredients. I mean, one of the things that was pointed out is that yes, we should be banning the chemical dyes and things of food that are used in foods, mainly because of health reasons. But more than that, instead of banning just banning the chemicals and forcing people to use natural ingredients, there should be an incentive in the market to use natural ingredients. And one of the reasons, especially around sugar, there are a ton of regulations in the market that cause it to be more expensive to use cane sugar than it is to use corn syrup. It isn't enough. It isn't enough that we should be banning the use of corn syrup. We should be incentivizing people to move to natural ingredients by allowing the markets to produce in a sufficient supply to meet demand and actually lower the price of those materials by increasing the supply. So it's not enough that we're, Mr. Kennedy is actually looking at using the powers of the government to ban these items. What really should be happening is the FDA should be removing regulations on certain food items that cause them to be too expensive in comparison with the more poor ingredients.
Well, that's because they use crazy regulations to. It's like what we see every day.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be that restaurants, New York City, obviously, we have a huge number of restaurants, pizza parlors, you name it.
Right.
Fast food restaurants, Burger King, McDonald's, all of that. And it used to be that if you had a business, especially a lot of businesses downtown, what they would do is if they had extra food at the end of the night, they would give it away to the homeless. They would either donate it or the homeless would know that if they came over at this time of night, or they'd set it aside from any other garbage so that people who are homeless could eat food, not, and I'm not talking about food that's been half eaten. I'm talking about, okay, they were preparing for, I don't know, they expected 1,000 people, 1,000 donuts.
A rush or whatever.
Yeah,
right.
1,000 donuts. Not everyone ate all the donuts. They made 2 extra pizza pies at the end of the night, but only one of them sold. So there's an extra pizza pie there. McDonald's, they had more fries at the end of the night than they thought they would. So they would give it away. And New York State said, oh, you can't do that. We can't feed people. Instead, you've got to throw it out. Literally, there is a law, New York City and New York State. You actually have to destroy the food rather than feed anyone with it, even though this is perfect food for human consumption that has not been touched by another human being. It's just extra. It was prepared and it's edible and it's fine. If someone walked into the store 2 minutes before the restaurant closed and made an order, they would have served them this food. If the homeless person walked into the restaurant, they would have been able to serve them this food. But because they're giving it away, it's illegal.
Right.
Again, this is the inefficiency and the ineffectiveness of government.
Yeah.
Because they didn't tell people, oh yeah, we're going to let this homeless starve. They never said that. They said, we're going to protect people's health. They're not going to be able to eat.
And the way they incentivize it is they give a tax break. So it's a tax write-off if you scrap the food. It is not a tax write-off if you donate the food. Right.
And you can't donate the food because by the
it's
time
illegal.
you could prepare it and package it according to state law,
regulations,
it's going to expire.
Yeah.
It can't fit the government guidelines to be edible, which means, it could be an extra hour.
Edible.
And that's it. That's all it needs is an extra hour of being, transported, and now it's not edible according to the government.
Right.
This means you're eating a cold pizza, but that's all it takes. It doesn't make any sense.
No, and it's highly inefficient. And the way to fix it would be for the people to actually go to their state legislatures and be like, hey, these regulations, they're throttling the people that we could be helping the most. We need to change the policy. We need to change the law. The government's not going to do it on its own. The people are the other half of that equation. And so far, our side of the equation is zero. It's essentially zero. We're multiplying everything against zero, and what do you get? Zero.
So part of it is making people aware of these things, and also making you aware that you can do stuff. They're counting on the fact you won't. They're counting on the fact you're going to have a busy day. We all do. And you're going to be tired, because we all are. And they're assuming you won't make the extra effort, because they've made it hard to get that extra effort so that they can get away with what they're doing. That's what they do. And I think this kind of goes into the question Joel asked, and I'll explain what I mean. Joel asked, is it not fair to blame Biden? Should I blame the auto pen? So I think I understand where Joel is going here. And again, this is another process of we haven't been given enough information, and the media and the politicians are making the decision for us because they think they're a neo-noble and we're a bunch of peasants and serfs and peons. Yeah. They're abusing us. So if I'm understanding this correct, and Joel, if I'm not, you can absolutely let me know so I can answer it better. But what I understand is there's an issue right now with the auto pen. Donald Trump has said that the last set of pardons by Joe Biden are invalid and void. Now, the news media has run with the idea, well, that's just Trump being braggadocious. He's being a dictator. You can't do that. There's no reason for that. Auto pen, which is basically, it's like a rubber stamp. It's an automated electronic rubber stamp. This is something that helps people. I mean, many business owners, many politicians, they have a lot of laws. The president has dozens of documents to sign. They all use auto pens. They've been using them for a couple of decades.
Yeah.
That's not the question. That's not the reason why this is considered, these pardons of Fauci and some of the other individuals in the Biden administration, Jill Biden, Biden's brother, who all got preemptive pardons, decade-long preemptive pardons, which all of that is unheard of.
Yeah.
People don't normally get a pardon before they get charged for a crime. People don't get cleared for a decade before they get charged with the crime.
Right.
That doesn't make sense. And that itself seems like something that shouldn't be legal. But in this case, the argument that Trump's actually making is Joe Biden is, as I say, he's a part-time zombie president. That's what we knew. We know now that members of the Biden White House, members of the news media were aware in January of 2021 that Joe Biden had mental issues. At that point, in January 2021, he had some bad days. So the staff would work around his incapability, his mental issues, to hide him from people who didn't know about this. Hide him from the public, hide him from other members of government, so they didn't catch on that he isn't mentally aware. And as we went through time, he got worse and worse and worse. And that's where the auto pen comes in. We don't know that people who were pardoned in this very unique manner were actually something that Biden wanted to do. One, we don't know that he was mentally capable of being able to make that decision. And I believe, and I'm trying to follow the news on this, but there's just nothing out there speaking about it. speaking about it directly. And yes, I see you there. I know. Yeah, I know. And I'm trying to find it, and I've seen some people hinting at this. I don't have a credible source, but again, no credible source is even talking about this.
No.
But this woman, whose name is Neera Tanden, she was a secretary for Joe Biden, and it seems she used the auto pen while Joe Biden was outside the United States. He was not in the country, and she used that auto pen to sign the pardons that Joe Biden might or might not have been mentally capable of signing. He might not have known what he was signing because he's not mentally there. So it's elder abuse, it's abuse of power, it's abuse of government, and it may be void because if Biden is in England, he can't sign a bill in the United States.
Right.
It's just not possible. And so that's the argument that's supposed to be coming out there.
I think that part of the reason why there is this question in the first place is actually a fault of Trump's. And the reason I say it's a fault of Trump's is because Trump has a very bombastic way of talking. Right? He uses a lot of hyperbole, and most of us know what he means. If I read his ex post about the question about the pardons and the use of the auto pen, and I automatically knew that if there's somebody pressing the button on the auto pen, it may or may not be Joe Biden because he's not cognitively there. So you and I and many of the people in the audience understand that when Trump talks about it, he's not saying that the use of the auto pen is bad. He's saying the person pressing the button may or may not have been competent or legally able to press that button. We understand that. But people that are under the viewership of mainstream media, all they're going to see is Trump said auto pen bad, and that's what they're running with. It's like they shouldn't be running with the auto pen. The auto pen is perfectly fine. Many presidents used it, and even Trump's used the auto pen. That's not the issue. The issue is, was the guy that signature appears on these documents, executive orders and pardons, was he cognitively capable of pressing the button, understanding what it is that the auto pen was signing? Or was he the vegetable and someone else was pressing the button for him because they thought it was a good idea?
Well, like
that's
I said,
the issue.
That's the two problems. You know, the two problems. Is he in the country? Is he cognizant? Besides the fact that this is something that is not normal.
Yeah.
And they don't want to talk about it. They do not want to have that conversation. Desperately do not want to have that conversation.
Yeah, because if that's the case, then many of the things that were signed, if we find out that it wasn't at the direction of a cognitive president, and we know that he was not cognizant half the time. He went to bed at like 4 o'clock. So who's signing documents after 4 o'clock? A staffer?
No. Well,
did they do it with his permission before he went to bed? Oh, by the way, I need you to sign those documents for me so when I wake up in the morning, I can present them to the cameras, okay? Did he do that? I mean, if he did that, then I guess that's perfectly fine. But if he's like, then he goes to bed, and they're like, hey, Joe's asleep. All right, we've got all these documentations that need to go out. We'll just rubber stamp them, and we'll put them out there, and then he'll look at it and be like, oh, yeah, I signed that.
Yeah.
You could do that, and he wouldn't even know the difference. He'd just be like, yeah, I signed that, Jack. I remember that. That's my signature. Yeah, I was sitting down there at 6 o'clock at night. Mr. President, you were asleep at 4. 6 o'clock. I was there. I know. I was sitting in the chair. Okay. Sure.
Yeah. There's so many problems with it. So many problems.
Yeah.
But I think that answered Joel's question about that. And I wanted to we've been trying to keep up with everybody. And again, thank you, Texan Spy Historian came on by, gave us a like and a share. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
I know a couple of other people have been doing it. I know there's lots of people who are watching us on YouTube, Facebook, on Rumble. So we appreciate all of you.
Yep. Thank you very much.
But I do need to start winding up a little bit because you heard my dog.
Yeah.
And so he's been barking at me. He's a little antsy and I don't have anyone else. Unless you want to run for 20 minutes by yourself.
Yeah, I could do that for a little bit. The only other thing I was gonna say, actually we can go ahead and wrap up if you want.
Okay.
The only thing I was gonna say is that my channel, Grim Liberty on Rumble, I am going to be taking a lot of these raw videos from YouTube, and I'm going to be placing them over there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also going to be downloading the raw video footage so that when Mike and Frank get the opportunity, I can shuttle them the video if they don't have it already, and we can actually post it to the Liberty First channel on Rumble. I don't know if the audience has noticed, but there's been a mass exodus of a lot of the bigger channels, such as Louder with Crowder, Russell Brand, Dan Bongino's show, which used to be the Bongino Show, is now Silverlock Entertainment, and they are exclusively going live on Rumble. So there is a mass exodus from YouTube to Rumble, and the reason being is support for freedom of speech. I don't know what YouTube's going to do. Maybe they'll wake up and they'll actually be like, hey, you know what? We've been too restrictive. Maybe we're losing a market share. Maybe that will help wake them up. I don't think so. I think they're going to try to be the most milquetoast cable group that you've ever seen on the internet. So a lot of these shows, a lot of the things that you're going to see are going to start appearing on Rumble. And we are going to, I at least for my channel, am actually going to start putting up content as well of my own with a Liberty focus. So that will be coming soon. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming and joining us on this Wednesday night. We're sorry it's a little bit short. We tend to go longer, but
you're not going to blame this cute little guy for that, are you, people? No.
There is so
right.
There is so much going on that we could honestly go for hours and hours on end just talking about constitutionality and what is happening in current events for our country and through the constitutional lens that we want to focus on here in the Liberty First Foundation. But it's just a ton, and a lot of that takes a lot of prep. And for a show that's run by a 4-man crew on some nights and sometimes a 1-man crew on many other nights, it tends to be overwhelming, especially when you have a day job. Not to make excuses. They're not here to make excuses, but we are here to say that it takes all of us. So I would ask the audience, if you like this and you subscribe and you find a story that you want us to address on the program through and go through the constitutionality of that reporting, go to the comments below. Talk about the subject. You may not be able to leave a link because YouTube's a little sketchy about links, but tell us what it is that you want us to discuss. If you want to say show topic, label it show topic or something like that in the comments. Leave it for us. We will research it and we will talk about it on the next Wednesday show. All right. So visit us at one LFS? L1F.us. There it is at the bottom of the screen. Yep. I can see it scrolling. Join us. Get involved with the constitutional group. We would prefer that it's with us. It's $15 a year annually. We're still in the middle of a membership drive. We want to get more people on board because we do want to get our voices out there to make real change. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is by joining a constitutional group like ours and getting educated and knowing about your rights and their free exercise based on the American Constitution. I know we didn't touch on Pam Bondi tonight.
No, we did a little bit.
A little bit, but not to the degree that I think we could have. I will say this: don't just focus on the lack of document releases. I think the bigger picture is here. Pam Bondi would be a fine district attorney, or the head of the DOJ if everything was working properly. But she came into a mess that she can't trust anybody. And I don't think she had a team together that she actually could trust to start working through the levels of all the mess that the swamp has given. One of the things I think is she's floundering. She's definitely been embarrassed, not once, but twice, maybe 3 times. And even though Trump gives her the benefit of the doubt, we still, as constituents and voters of this administration, have the right to be critical of her performance. And hopefully she'll rise to meet that criticism and actually improve. If she doesn't, I hope that Trump has the wherewithal to actually look at that performance, and based on merit, be like, look, you're a great person, you did your best, but I need somebody else in that role, because obviously it's not working out for you.
He's fired people before.
Yeah.
Not only from the show, but when he was president previously. He can do it again. And we'll see more about Pam going down the line. She's not going anywhere quite yet.
No.
But we'll see.
It's still early. It's still early, but I think that she would be better off if there was more, if our government was working as it was intended. I don't think she's up to the task.
That's a different world.
Yeah, that's a different world, and I don't think she's up to the task of all the dirt that she's got to shovel in the muck that's in the swamp right now. So that's my opinion. That it's not based on anything except my observations. So we'll see how it goes. I believe in outcomes. I don't believe in believing in people. Right? I want if I'm going to vote for you and you're going to work for me, I want to see your outcomes. That's how I judge whether you're good at your job or not. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. And I agree with you, Joanne. But with that said, I do have to jump with my dog. So we'll have more coming up very, very soon, folks. Absolutely. We always enjoy having you with us every Wednesday. Remember, it's at 8 p.m. Do like, share, subscribe, let people know. We always want to hear your voices. We always love to have the conversation with you on all of these issues that are affecting us all. And we're looking forward to seeing you again next week.
Live free, fight well, liberty first.